Makes me do this.
Good evening. June 18th, 6:30 p.m. for the City Council meeting, and call to order. And call the Quorum Check.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Bulman.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Putt.
Here.
Councilmember Rubal.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Invocation tonight is by Mr. Goolsby, and now lead us in the pledge.
Please bow. Lord, we want to thank you for this beautiful day you've given us, Lord. Not every day is what we expect, but Lord, we all know that it's your will and your time. Lord, be with us tonight as we make decisions for the city. Be with our citizens, be with our first responders, be with our military and their families. Bless those that need it right now, Lord. Be with them, give them comfort. In your name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll start off with staff city manager report.
No reports this evening, so thank you.
Reports this evening, no staff report at all.
Correct.
Great.
He did say that.
Next will be citizens to be heard. This is the time for citizens to discuss any specific items that they may have that's not on the agenda. We're not allowed to discuss the issue afterwards, but it's for information only. And I have two people signed up. I'm sorry, is that? I'm not sure if it's like Juanita? Judah? I can't really. Judah?
No.
Harbrecht. I'm sorry, I mispronounced the name, but I'm not sure how to spell it. Please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jutta Halffish, and I live at 118 Metal Way by Red Horse Mountain Park. I don't know, but I have some things that you can pass out, and I don't think I have enough. I only make 6 copies, 5 or 6 copies.
I can make more copies.
Thank you. There's some papers. This first I speak, and I'm kind of nervous. So, my name is Jutta Halffish. My husband's name is Rubal. We are immigrants from Germany. I worked for Southwest Airlines for 25 years. Husband was master electrician in Germany for 25 years. He came here to America and he started as an electrician apprenticeship, and they had a horrible fall. And I've been dealing with a lot of it for the past 14 years now. And I am his sole caregiver. I've been doing it for 14 years. And some of the pictures that I have there, you can see that I have been doing a lot of work around the house to make it handicap accessible for him and for me later on and resell. I do a lot of work myself. I'm more of an outdoor person where my husband did all the housework. So we have obviously, he was my house husband and I was the yard person. And I do auto mechanic. I basically am very hands-on. And done some concrete work, and I not know that I had to have a permit for it. And what I did is, when they come back and say that I have to tear it up, I cannot have it against driveway, I rented a saw, and I took about 4 or 5 inches from driveway, and then I also made steppings, big long stones, 5 by 4 by 4 inches, and they still say I need to take it apart. I know that she said I need to take first one because it's not angle right, but I went in and spent several hours with Linda trying to do the computer stuff, and I'm not very good on computer. I mean, the email I sent you guys, it took me between the letter, copying everything, and then the photos, at least 8 hours. So that's why some of you guys got 3 different emails from me. But I'm just trying to resolve that I can use that. It is not an extension to the driveway. I made it so it's a walkway, and I want to try to finish that for around the house and into the backyard. So, and I got so, I'm confused with some of the stuff that is in the paperwork. So, all I want to do is try to resolve this and not take it all out. If I have to take it out, it's going to cost $10,000 for a new person to come and do the same thing what I did for $2,000.
Thank you.
I think you were mistaken.
No, you can sit down. Thank you, though. I did want to say that we have all received emails, and I know that we back and forth. And I know the city is working with that, and so I'm going to ask that you work with city manager and find out that at some point in time we'll come up to, an agreeable solution. So, that being said, I have David Tidwell.
I want to thank you all for all of your service that you do to this wonderful city that we live in. And I'm at 8259 Phoenix. And having read the last minutes on regard to traffic situations, Phoenix is a thoroughfare, and with the growing construction and population that we have going on here, Phoenix, one block in between Forum and Oak Meadows, it's on a hill, and it's just really, really unsafe. The cars come down the hill, and I'm out in the yard working. I retired 2 years ago, so I'm in the yard a lot. The cars come down the hill, and they're broaching 50 miles an hour at the corner of Forum and Phoenix. And there's a hump there. Cars have jumped up in the air. About 3 weeks ago on the Selma side, right when you cross over Forum, a lady was backing out of her driveway. T-bone knocked her car completely off to the community mailbox. And so there's pedestrian traffic, there's one yield sign on Forum, and it's just like, it's just insane. I did it today. I went down the hill. I have a minivan, and so when it's going 20, I took my foot off the gas and just went down the hill, and by the time I hit my residence, I was going 30. And so mine's a front wheel drive, so it's actually holding back. And so I just would like to throw in that street as a really contender for being looked at for safety issues. That corner right there, my neighbor, his car was hit 2 times in 1 week. He parked on the street on this night. And so it was last year, his car got hit twice in 1 week. And it's just, I don't know how many traffic vehicles go through the neighborhood right there, because you jump on 1604 and 35 at the Forum. That's a good cut through, but there's like, I'm not going to exaggerate, there's just a lot of traffic, and the people don't live there. It's a thoroughfare. And so if you guys would consider that in your traffic stuff in the near future, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. taking this to, well, I know we also have an agenda item on that later on this evening. Okay. That one's over. Going into a consent agenda. All matters listed under this one are considered as routine city council. And it looks like we have one item.
I think you skipped over.
Oh, I did skip one. My
Yes.
apologies. I have jumped over announcements. City manager announcements.
Thank you. A couple of things. Ms. Bulman had mentioned a discussion regarding the deer population in Universal City. She and I and some of the staff members were able to meet with an urban biologist. He has agreed to come out and do a presentation. We had reached out to a couple of homeowners associations hoping we could hit a large group of our population there. Several of them advised us that they don't have a large attendance. And so we were able to work with the Universal City Police Academy Alumni Association, and they agreed to host it at one of their meetings, in which they're also making available to the public. So that will be Wednesday, which is tomorrow evening, at 6 o'clock in this room. We will be live streaming the presentation as well as recording it. So when it is over, if you can't attend or you don't want to come, you can watch it live, or you can watch it again. It will be on the city website with all of the other city council videos. So that's available to you. And then Mr. Vaughan obviously checks his mail more than I do because he received this card from SAWS. And so maybe a lot of people in the audience received it as well. So all of the utility providers, water providers, are having to go through and update their drought restrictions. SAWS has already done theirs, and they are notifying everyone in the SAWS district that they updated them and that there's new rules and regulations. And they're notifying people by sending out this card. Universal City residents are not SAWS customers. They are Universal City customers. So if you get this, it does not have any application to you. And if I can keep the card, we'll put it out on the social media and advise everybody. But with that, I will make a reminder that Universal City has to update its drought ordinance as well. Randy and his team are working on that, and so we'll have that to you shortly. And then we'll be sending these postcards out, and hopefully we'll get them to all the right addresses. I think maybe part of the problem is they used ad pages, and ad pages, you know, if you get your mail, they send ad pages out into this area, and so I think that's what they're using as their mail list. So I did send an email to their marketing department asking them in the future to consider not sending those out into Universal City. Also, when there's a boil notice, they do the robocall to Universal City residents as well, and I'm going to ask them not to do that at the same time. Mr. Rubal had asked for the PowerPoint presentation from ACOG. I apologize, sir. I didn't realize that the council members and the mayor had not received those yet. I will get with them and get copies of those and then send them out to everybody. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know, tentatively at this point, we do not have anything for the July 2nd meeting, which is our next meeting. And so I'll be working with the mayor and keeping him updated, and then he can make the decision on whether or not we actually will have to have a meeting on July 2nd. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
The only thing I've got for everyone is that I'm still trying to get my feet completely wet with the new procedures, new obligations, and new requirements. And there are a few that Mayor Williams did not tell me about. I want to give everybody, I am still working on I guess a team day at Randolph Air Force Base, but that's probably going to be around the August time frame at the earliest. July is a change of command ceremony with the 12th Wing. I will be attending and representing Universal City. I just want to remind everyone that there's a heavy weather forecast for our area, so just be safe the next couple of 3 days. There's a good possibility that we may very well have some heavy rain like we've had a few times before. That's all I've got for myself. Council members, Mayor, would you like to start out?
Oh, sure. So a lot of y'all know that I have kids, and that some of y'all that drive by my house know I have a butterfly garden. I realized after we had a very unfortunate incident that I needed to do a little education. So I'm going to start here. So everybody knows what that is, right? That's a beautiful little ladybug. But a lot like people, when they are teenagers, they're not quite as cute. That is a ladybug larva. That's what a baby ladybug looks like. They're not cute, they're mean, they like to bite, but they turn into those cute little ladybugs. So if you see that little guy, don't squish him, he's out eating all the aphids. So there's my announcement, that's all I got.
I was just going to remind everyone too about the Texas Wildlife Deer presentation tomorrow, but I also wanted to do another reminder of if you wanted to and have not signed up for a border commission, you still have time to get your application in, and those can be done online on our city website. That's all I got.
I just want to acknowledge that one of our finest, retired Lieutenant David Kinney, has suffered a health issue, is in rehab and doing better. But I want, if you could pass it on to him, that we are sending our love and our prayers. And he's got to get back to being mean and cranky again.
I just left, it's still a little mean and cranky.
Okay, well that means it's okay then.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so just sending our best to him.
Road ahead of it, but yes, ma'am, thank you. He's
Absolutely.
looking for visitors anytime, he's right down the road.
That's what I-
address out. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that I've spoke a lot about the Heroes Camp, and I just wanted to, as it wrapped up, it was really such a special week, and the parents were so touched and so excited. I had probably 5 at least of the parents that offered to help with it next year, that they thought it was such a powerful experience for their kids. We are going to probably rebrand it a little bit just to make it a little older and cooler. We got the feedback from our 12 to 14-year-olds that they thought it was going to be too kid-like and thought it was going to be lame, and it was the opposite of lame. But I wanted to, in particular, really call attention to the police officers and the firefighters that came out and worked and spent time with the kids and connected with them in such a way that those kids have a completely different experience with first responders that they've ever had before. And I know those memories will go with them forever. They will forever remember, you know, the foot chase and driving with beer goggles and CPR. So I think that's something that our community should be really proud about, that we offer that to our kids. I'm really excited about it continuing on, and I just hope everybody shares that excitement. And I wanted to put a plug in for Casino Night. The tickets have gone on sale. It's July 27th. It is a fundraiser for the Citizens Police Academy. And we probably will maybe make an emphasis with the Heroes Camp, show the video there so that people can get familiar with what they experienced. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to second the Hero Camp kudos, essentially, just being there for a short period of time. The fire personnel were exquisite, essentially. I probably learned more in 15 minutes than perhaps some of the kids did, but things that I can actually apply. So maybe they can increase the age range.
We'll include you next year.
So I thank the staff that worked that out and the parents for allowing their kids to participate. The other thing that I have, Mr. Mayor, is we are a new council, and I appreciate all your efforts to move things forward. I would like some clarification in the future as to the process for consent agendas, but essentially it's not a critical issue for now. If we can get that cleared up as to exactly what that is, exactly what the vote requirement is. It's not in the standing rules per se, and it is actually not opposite, perhaps a complementary procedure for the standard procedures of council, which are more parliamentary. So I appreciate your efforts in getting clarification of that sometime in the future.
Noted, and I'll do my best to get a clarification on that. And with that, we can close that one out, and now we can go to the consent agenda. Looks like we only have one item on the consent agenda. I'll take a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye, for real.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, that's good. All right, moving into action items. Tab B, bid acceptance for the Kitty Hawk Emergency Access Service Road and Parking Lot.
Kitty Hawk Road Emergency Access version 2. So as you know, in 2023, we sent this out for bid. It was over what we had budgeted. Randy and his staff went back with the engineers and value engineered it. The public works staff did a little bit of clearing to help cut some of the costs down. They put it back out for bid, and the bid came in at $2,098,000. And so that includes not only the service access road, but now also the parking lot, which was not in the first version, correct? And so that has been added in. As you know, that area is the entrance for Veterans Park. The aviation district is the trailhead, but there's also, it goes all the way down to Kitty Hawk Road. So as part of this project, we'll be putting a parking lot in there and at some point restrooms so that people can access Veterans Park linear trail from both ends. And so we are asking you this evening to accept the bid, or excuse me, award the bid to D&D contractors.
Accept a motion.
Move to approve the amount of $2,004,353.12 to include that alternate bid number 1 in the amount of $93,724.33, totaling $2,098,077.45 to D&D contractors for the Kitty Hawk Emergency Access Service Road and parking lot improvements.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
May I address the city manager? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. When may I ask when the $2 million was allocated and what fund does it come from?
So it's in your CIP fund. He's asking where and when you dedicated your $2 million.
So we've had this in the previous budget and in the current budget. It's CIP bond dollars that we're using that came from the excess funds of the East Aviation Bond Project. But they've been approved by City Council in 2 previous budgets.
3 years ago?
2003 is the last time we put out for bid, so we've been part of the
2023 and
24. I'm
24.
sorry.
And basically, I know a lot of work has gone into this, but we're going to be looking at approval of the Cibolo Crossing work also. And when I walked that road Sunday, that the route is proposed, it seems like essentially access through Cibolo Crossing might have been possible at some time. Effectively, the roads are paralleling to a certain extent from the Kitty Hawk side at this point in time. And so I was just asking whether or not, it's too late now, but whether any consideration was done for access through the new development to kind of cheapen the costs and that sort of thing.
Not at the time. No, the developer at the time was not willing to look at us trying to have access through there. They did do an emergency request from the fire department where a lift station is emergency evacuation for that subdivision. So that was incorporated in there. So we are tying into that emergency access in the event that that entrance to that subdivision gets closed off by fire or whatever is blocking the road. They have another way of egress to get out.
So basically, Cibolo Crossing didn't want Cibolo Crossing. And finally, sir, was there any thought to putting a substation in the aviation district where the city owns land so that essentially city emergency vehicles could quickly access a low water crossing at that point and then also have access through 78 to the ETJ areas? And I think also our chief of police had said that currently the ETJ was kind of within the standards of service. He said, I think a while back, can you put that together for us a little bit?
So that was a lot, so let me see if I can dissect it. So currently, the level of police service for that area can be serviced, but you have to remember we have another 100 acres of development over there, which is a lot of housing and a lot of commercial. We are currently working with multiple developers who are wanting to develop that area. So the emergency service access and the need for emergency services will most likely increase as time goes on. In terms of a substation, a couple of years back, we looked at a substation at the request of the city council. It was actually for a substation down in the wagon crossing area. And once we ran the numbers for the cost of the land, the building, the equipment, the staffing, and everything that was needed, and the call response time that we currently have for police, fire, and EMS, it was determined that the substation was not needed. And so I will garner, it's going to be the same thing for the what we now call the ETJ as well, because it's actually a smaller area than what we were looking at over in the wagon crossing.
And the last question, ma'am, is there any benefit to having, is there any additional water access that we can have with having that?
So all the water that is over there is ours. We have a very large water distribution system over there. So in the state of Texas, you are required to have a certificate of convenience and necessity, and that's called your CCN. And that basically says that you are only you are able to put your water in that area. The area that we have out there is our CCN, and that is the only water that's available. So everybody that's along FM 1518, Orchard Park, all the way down from Maskew Road, will be utilizing the city's water main that we have. That water main goes down Kitty Hawk, under the creek, pops up on the other side, goes under 1518, and runs the extent of 1518. So we do have sufficient capacity for water out there as well.
Thank you.
16-inch main,
12-inch,
12-inch, two 12-inch mains. Yes, Ms. Bulman.
I just had a clarifying question about something you said, so pardon my ignorance, because I don't live in Cibolo Crossing. That's I know they have the one entrance out. Are you saying that's their only entrance out of there?
Yes.
So this would be an alternate route for them to be able to get out if that was blocked? That's what you just said? I'm
Yeah,
just
so
clarifying.
basically, police and fire will have access to the gate. There's already a gate at my lift station.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, so that gate, in the event of emergency, they can open up that gate to allow the residents out another direction.
But they can't get out any other way other than that first entrance is what
Correct.
you're saying. So this
Yeah.
gives them an option to get out of their subdivision
Correct.
safely because there's only
Yeah.
one in and one out. I just thought there was a back end for some reason, but I guess not.
No,
Okay.
their back end is it's a cliff. If you've been in some of the backyards.
Yeah,
it's a
I meant
really
like
steep
the end of
drop.
the subdivision. I thought it went out somewhere. Like the end, like it's just a dead end is what you're saying. I'm just clarifying. It's just a dead end. So this would give them a second way to get out if they can't get out through the front for some reason.
During an emergency or something.
An emergency, yeah, like if there was an actual emergency, but
We're
okay,
talking about two separate projects now.
okay.
And Mr.
Sorry.
Rubal combined them together. So the one that you're working on now is the emergency access road from Kitty Hawk through the creek out to the ETJ.
Okay,
Right, that's the
Yep.
one that we're talking about right now. But as he stated, off that road, there is another emergency access road that cuts over to Cibolo Crossing subdivision, and that can be in there too, but that is not part of this project.
Yes, it is.
No, it is part of this project. I
okay,
apologize.
that's just what I was trying to clarify. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So just to be a dead horse, but the main purpose of this road was to try to improve response times to Orchard Park, right? That's the main goal.
Well, not necessarily improve response time. So when we annex an area and bring it into the city, we sign a service agreement, which is basically a contract with the developer and anybody that's going to live there, saying that we will provide them with the same services that we provide everybody who's already within the boundaries of the city. And so when we sign that service agreement, it says we're going to give them police access, fire access, code compliance, water, sewer, gas, electric, and all those other things. And so having the access service road that we're talking about, the emergency one, meets all of those needs and improves the response time for police, fire, and EMS. Not only for us to them, But if Schertz and Selma happen to be out in that area and they're responding to a call, we've made a call to them to come, they can get here too. So if you live over in that area and you have somebody coming from Schertz or Selma to assist us, you're actually getting your emergency services a lot quicker.
And I will add that my equipment, like a loader, backhoe and all that, that has to go for emergency main breaks, just this evening, we had a tree down on Northview where we got to take the loader, pick it up, move it out of the way. That's going to be a safer route for us to go than it is to take it down 15, 8 feet or along 35 access road to get over there.
Okay. But currently, if there was an emergency in Orchard Park, we have a mutual aid agreement to where there is somebody that's going to be there very quick. If there was, response times matter, they're not in the lurch currently. Would that be a fair
For
statement?
fire, yes.
Well, police too. I mean, someone's in the area. I don't think they would beat us there.
Generally.
Yeah, we do. We have with all of our sister cities MOUs for backing one another, as well as ACOG as a whole. The 13 counties all have a mutual aid agreement to assist one another.
Yes, sir.
But
So I don't think it's fair to count on them to be the first ones.
Right,
there.
exactly.
That's not fair for us.
That's right.
But I think it would be better for us to try to leverage those partnerships than to focus on this low water crossing. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I was just going to make a comment. I have been have this presented many times on planning and zoning, and I've been in many council discussions as they've talked about this. And I know that this has always felt like it was kind of the plan of where we were going. Randy, I'm so happy that you were able to, you don't have to get like that. So happy that you were able to go get this down within the allocated amount that we were wanting to spend. I appreciate the effort that you guys did to go into this. I think this road makes sense from a standpoint of we do have additional ETJ development that's going to go on over there. We are going to have more people over there. That is going to require additional support from fire, police, and public works. I think thinking through that in the long term definitely makes sense if we already have this money allocated. That I appreciate the fact that it's come back before us within within the budget that we thought it should be. Thank you.
No other comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
No.
Motion carries.
That's carried. We'll close that out. We'll go to tab C. Ordinance 370P 2024 permit exception for accessory structures.
Thank you, sir. This was the council discussion that you had, that you wanted us to do away with a permit requirement for accessory structures that were less than 200 square feet, and that is what this ordinance is for.
Move for approval.
Second.
We got question and discussion?
Yes, sir. That structure is essentially 10 foot wide by 20 foot long. Okay. How high is it? Basically, if I look up a 10 by 20 foot building on the internet, it's a grandmother house. It's a bed and breakfast and type thing. And I'm trying to, and I obviously wasn't on council for the original discussion. But essentially, I can drive my new car into that with room to spare compared to my own garage. And basically, I'm wondering if we're throwing a little bit of the baby out with the bath water in this case. That's a big goal. So that's my only comment.
Any other comment?
That was just kind of my concern, but we have talked it through. Under 200 square feet is reasonable. My only concern is, I need to fix that. You know, they're going to put something in that doesn't meet the standards, and if it's in the backyard, the city can't see it if it's too close to the fence. But that's been resolved, and I appreciate the conversation. this, I can see where this is going to save the homeowner down the road from, if they do go against the guidelines, from spending a lot more money or having to take things down, so kind of understand it now. It was confusing.
Anyone else have comments?
I'll just,
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem.
thank you. I was going to say, I still have of the opinion that when we're looking at permits, we shouldn't be doing piecemeal solutions. I think we should be looking at them holistically and how they impact. I do think that there's value in the process of a permit that saves the homeowner from the upfront. There's an upfront expense to that, whereas if they make a mistake and they do something wrong, the back end can be so costly, and I've seen so many of those come before Board of Adjustments and Board of Appeals where they have to maybe tear down something that costs them $10,000 versus paying $85 up front and having the conversation with what's approved. That's just kind of where I'm operating from, so that's all I have.
Okay, I got one now. So if I want a permit, I can go, if I want to get a permit to put in a 2x2 concrete stepping stone in my backyard, I could come in and get one? I could apply for a flat work permit?
Yes.
If I wanted to apply for a permit for a 9.5 foot by 19.5 foot structure, I could apply for one?
We would tell you you don't need to apply for one, but here's the rules.
But I have the opportunity to apply for one?
I would say no.
No,
I couldn't ask you for a permit.
It's not required. Why would we do it?
I was under the impression that if I needed a permit that I could request inspections.
No. When you pay for your permit, because it's required, it includes the cost of the inspections. But if we're not going to require you to have a permit, there's no reason for us to go and inspect it.
But if I asked you to, I guess my whole thing was I thought we had that opportunity at any point. If I needed to get an inspection, I can pay for an inspection.
No. This is a complete hands-off issue. So if a homeowner decides to put in a 200 square foot accessory structure, and I want to make sure we understand, we're talking all accessory structures, not just sheds. We're talking pergolas, decks, greenhouses, anything that's in the code is a definition of an accessory structure. Less than 200 square feet, you don't need a permit for it. That's what the exclusion
Okay, there's a
is.
difference between need and want, right? If I want to get a permit.
We're not, this is not built off needs and wants. This is built off what the code said. It says there is an exception for a permit.
It says it's not required, but is it possible?
No.
Is it possible that we could make it possible?
If you want to make it possible, then leave the ordinance the way it is.
Right now, the ordinance requires it. See, there's a difference and this is where the architect has a hard time, between a requirement versus a guideline. The guideline says you have to wear slacks to the office. Is it a requirement? No, it's a guideline.
An exception is an exception.
An exception to the rule means that if you don't have to, can you? And to me, it's always, then I can if I want to. I don't have to accept. Every code reviewer out there, and I'm even going to throw Jacqueline under the bus, has dinged me on a set of plans, requiring me to say, I am taking exception B to this. So I don't see why I can't then turn that back around and say, I am not accepting exception B. As it's not required, but I would like it. And I'll still pay my fees, and I'll still do everything that I'm supposed to do if I was building a 201 square foot accessory structure.
But again, I apologize, but I think you're muddying the waters. So you're using your personal expertise with the code and trying to find an in-between. And on the resident side, they want to know, do I or don't I? That's it, that's all they want to know.
Can I? That's what, seriously.
And I'm going to say, can you build a shed? under 200 square feet without getting a permit? And the answer is yes. If it's at 201 square feet, then the answer is you need a permit.
Well, there are people sitting up here today that had bad experiences with bad contractor, right? And the permit process saved them because the inspector came out. So if I want you to come out and inspect this, time after, in the past, I felt like that was always something that we offered, was that if you wanted to pull a permit on something that you're doing, you can.
No.
So why can't I? I mean, y'all are staff, right? Y'all run this city. Why can't I make that a possibility?
Go ahead.
So here's a scenario that's going to play out, I guarantee it, when you do what you're suggesting, is that someone's going to want to get a permit for the reason you stated. We're going to issue the permit, we're going to go out there and inspect it and fail, and they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to cancel the permit. Do it again.
And at that point, that's on them, but if they have a contractor that stinks.
Then you put the liability on
liability for
the
the
city and
city.
the city staff to ignore something that we know is harmful or incorrect or injurious to the neighbor or to the.
Well, but at that point, you've already looked over my back fence and saw my pool, so you might as well take it, you have the ability to tell them to take it out.
Pool is not an accessory structure.
But you know what I'm saying? At that point, you've already been invited in. You already know it's there, and you can tell them, no, this doesn't meet code. I think because the argument is that staff, that the city can't look over the back fence. Well, you've already been invited. So at that point, you're already there. You know it, and now you can have, maybe it's not going to be Jacqueline, it'll be code compliance that hits them with it.
Your poor children.
I've never won an argument with Kim. I'm really trying hard. I just want to know if it's possible.
I don't know.
All right, I'm ready.
We haven't even vetted that. Usually it's, and you know how code is. It's typically black or white. It's yes or no. Architects can find the
gray all over
and the
the place.
color in it, but I can tell you building officials and inspection departments do not, generally speaking.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would just like to say that this was what the ICC recommends. So they put out the codes and they say that we recommend that you don't have a permit for these. And this is what most of our cities in the area do. And most of the time, you're going to have innocuous structures like the greenhouse that we were presented with, that it was bought at Costco and they put it up, and maybe it meets the rule, maybe it doesn't, but the risk to the society as a whole is not a big one. And if they have to take it down, it's not a big one. If code compliance catches them and says, hey, that was not appropriate or doesn't meet the code for some reason. So we're just recommending that we follow the ICC's recommendations. I don't have a problem with their suggestion of making it optional if that's something that we can do down the road. And if this becomes a major problem a year from now, and we're having a lot of problems with accessory structures, we can always put it back in if we decide we want to do that. So I would recommend we stick with the ordinance that's been presented and leave it up to the homeowners. I think if the city can put together a really good slick saying, somebody calls and says, I've got a 150 square foot shed, and you can hand it to them and say, hey, here's all the rules, make sure you follow them, but you don't have to get a permit. I think we'd be 90% of the way there. So that's my recommendation. Mayor.
Any other comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
No.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Tab D, ordinance 581, ex-PUD 2023-101, grant extension to 3902 Catbooker Road.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we have a PUD ordinance, and you've actually approved quite a bit of those PUD developments. Sometimes when they're working down the pathway towards their project, it takes a little bit longer than the time frame put within the PUD ordinance. It does allow for them to have a 12-month extension as long as it's approved by City Council. And so 2902 Pat Booker Road, which is commonly known as Jumpy Joe's, one of the very first PUDs that we approved is asking for their 12-month extension.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Good. Approved. Discussion? Yes.
Has there been any interest from other parties in this property that are viable?
It's the same.
The guys that we've already got, yeah, but I mean, there's still people that ask about it and want it. And
No, it's already been sold. It's the same developer that did the original PUD is still working on their plans for development. They just need a little bit of additional time. I think you're talking about the one on Centerbrook.
Okay, I apologize, thank you.
Quite all right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the Putts, sitting on the other side, it's not an exception, but a rule that the PUD developers seem to extend in general. And that sort of puts the city at a little bit of a disadvantage. We lose a year. There is an opportunity now for actually reconsideration of that whole area to keep it in line with commercial development rather than PUD, since the PUD people have essentially missed their deadline. And, we're landlocked. It's an ideal place. Obviously, one could argue that because it hadn't sold to PUD, it's been off the market essentially, garbaged by PUD people, our PUD developers for a year. And again, the city seems to have gone through that with regard to Reunion, with regard to essentially the development on the south side of Reunion, and even the area around Phoenix that was to be developed. There's always been an extension, and I wonder if there's a way to at least keep these PUD developers within a time frame that's a little bit stricter as far as the consequences. If we lose time, and effectively we lose money, and so I think it's time that we tighten developers' responsibilities up. That's my comments. Thank you.
Any other comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Yeah, motion carries.
Moving to tab E, final acceptance on Cibolo Crossing Unit 1 subdivision.
Thank you. Obviously, the word Cibolo and crossing is coming up quite a bit this evening. So when a subdivision is developed, the developer puts in the utilities and infrastructure as part of their overall development. Along the way, the staff reviews that and inspects it, our Public Works Department, as well as our city engineer and the developer's engineer. After it's been in place for 1 year, we do a preliminary acceptance, and then 1 year after that, we do a final acceptance. For the final acceptance to occur, that means their engineer and our engineer, their staff and our staff have gone out and inspected everything, and they agree that everything is in proper working order. And so, as a final acceptance, if you do that this evening, then what that means is those are now public streets, and then we take over the water, sewer, and streets in that portion of that subdivision. So the first one that we have is for a final acceptance on phase 1. Tab F is a preliminary acceptance for the infrastructure on phase 2.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Is that tab F, public meeting requiring preliminary acceptance?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, that closes that. Tab G, resolution amending library collection development policy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank God people still like to read an actual book. I know a lot of people prefer the electronic, but we do have a library collection development policy. One of the things that we have learned in light of what's happening at schools and at other public libraries around the state, actually across the country, is that sometimes people determine that they don't want a specific book within a library collection. So this policy is to take what we have in place already for people who want to request that a book removed. It streamlines the process, gets them to fill out that application so that it can be considered by the staff and the library commission. So that's what you have before you this evening.
Move to approve.
So,
Who was the second?
Mayor Pro
Ms. Putt.
Ms. Putt,
Thank you.
discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan. Motion carries.
Notice down.
I'm
Tab,
sorry, Mayor, just I failed to acknowledge that we do have our youth librarian, our head librarian with us this evening, as well as a couple of members from the Library Advisory Board who worked on this, and we thank you for all your work that you've done.
thank you. Tab H, resolution approving the application for motor vehicle crime prevention authority grant.
As you remember, at a recent meeting, you approved 4 resolutions for police grants, and they've actually been able to find another one. I know there's been some question on what we're actually approving, so this is just the council's approval for them to go actually and make the application for the grant for the crime prevention system that they're looking at. As you can see, Chief Siemens is here, and if you have any questions regarding the grant or the end product, we'll be happy to answer those for you.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Okay, first. I guess that there's been some privacy concerns a little bit from the block safety contract. And apparently there's some changes you can make to the contract, maybe make it a little bit more secure to where it's not necessarily stored with the contractor, but stored here. Maybe some audit logs on searches of that database. And so that may not need to be hashed out now, but I'm wondering if we can approve the application pending, if you get it awarded, the contract come back and we kind of look at what some of those privacy controls might be over data. If you want to speak to that, I'd like to.
I can just, first off, good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and citizens, of course. I have been around or oversaw or exposed to license plate readers probably since 2009. And this technology is probably the greatest move in technology for crime fighting that I've seen in the 23-year career that I had. That said, absolutely, Councilman, we wouldn't have it any other way. Flock Safety provided us a sample policy. My serving on the Texas Police Chiefs Association Executive Board will facilitate a best practices policy as well for license plate readers, and then we will certainly review those and make sure that they are appropriate, but are best fitting for all of the concerns that we all have for privacy. But this particular camera system is much less invasive, if that's an appropriate word, and I think it is, than some of the other license plate readers that actually dive into the data behind the license plate itself. This is basically a fingerprint of a vehicle. And then we get rid of it 30 days later if no crime has been reported. And so this is going to be, we would have made a case today on a motorcycle that hit one of our city vehicles and then tried to run Randy over during its evaded our officers. It wrecked out, jumped through the neighborhood over at Mr. Snyder's area. We fortunately caught that individual, but these cameras would have made that possible had he evaded us entirely. So it's just identifying the vehicle and what direction they went so that we have a license plate to take from that picture and do something with. And there's a few other benefits, but to your original question, absolutely. And there will be a policy that will be available Obviously, education of what these cameras are for, what they're doing, keeping the public abreast of what their purpose is, and assuring them that this is not what some have concerns over.
Well, I understand there's a couple different options. So you can have them house the data and have them add it to.
No, sir, the data's all ours. That's not an option. I met with them this morning, and the data is only ours. We're the only ones with access, so we can even further restrict other law enforcement agencies from free flow access as well. So our policy would include all the above, and more, to your point.
Okay. So with that policy, would it be possible to either have, if you get awarded the grant, would that be something that we could?
Absolutely. We would certainly make that put that out there for suggestions. Some things we have to stay firm on, like retention date. We can't go much less than 30, or it does a disservice to our folks, right? We don't want to re-victimize the victims, but absolutely we want that input. Mr. Schneider, younger Mr. Schneider had a lot of foresight in seeing some of these things too, and we always value that input.
Anyway.
So we have a grant for 1 year, and then we have to pick up the cost year after year. But if you decide, if for some reason this doesn't work to our advantage, we don't have to continue that contract, correct?
That, or we can just dismiss some of the cameras that aren't as fruitful as others, and we can minimize the costs. I can tell you from vetting this thing for the last 60 days, I have reached out to my network of contacts and my sphere of influence with the other chiefs in the state of Texas, Dallas, Arlington, Houston. All the major cities use this particular product. To a person, they have all said this has been a game changer for solving crime. Yeah, it's been and I said when we started down this road, are you here to tell me you can guarantee us the results? And he said, yes, sir. And this was a former Arlington cop. In fact, one of Arlington's assistant chiefs is now the chief of shirts. We have a great relationship. I got him on the Alamo area board that I'm the city president for, and he said, get him if you can. Just one more point I'd like to make is that all of our sister cities are in the process of doing this. So it's not. This isn't something that is not out there and already vetted and tried and tested.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically, there are 12 cameras scheduled.
That's correct.
And do you have a implementation plan? Tentative one?
Yes, sir. Tentative. Yes, sir.
And
a phase plan.
Expound on what that plan might be.
So we have visited and revisited desired locations for what we know to be our criminal hotspots, if you will, or areas that we think will be beneficial to the city. Certainly the arterials that come and go. Yeah, thank you. Arteries that come and go into our city. Certainly the Randolph Air Force Base corridor as well. And the implementation, once approved, it goes pretty quick. They come out and put the cameras up on their equipment, and they're done within a few weeks. So it goes quite fast from a project standpoint.
And to follow Ms. Putt's thought, that is in 10 years time after you buy the printer, you got to pay for the ink, and essentially that's going to be $380,000. Is there, and it's really a question for the city manager, is there a plan to cover that forward?
Where's the three? I'm sorry, Councilmember, I don't know if 380,000 would prefer.
Essentially,
over 10 years, 38,000.
Over 10 years.
Subsequent years, and 10 years is $380,000. That would be $380,000. And basically, I'm kind of asking the city manager whether there's a plan to move forward to protect that or revenue stream for that. So it's not a surprise every year we don't sacrifice something that we need else in the city.
Well, that's a decision that'll be made by the police department. As you know, every department in the city preliminary does its own budget, knows its own operational expenses and contracts that it has in place. And if there is something within the police budget that they need to identify in order to continue to carry these, that'll be the chief's responsibility to do that.
There's no intention to offset overtime with this long-term estimate, because overtime is...
I don't see that happening with this particular technology. It might even increase some, sir. But to the quality, to the improved quality of life of the citizens and business owners and visitors that we have to our city by not re-victimizing it, because we're able to make these cases for them. That said, though, we're going to pursue grants at every opportunity, and we're very successful at that. We know it's not what you're asking for, it's how you ask for it, it's the data you provide. We're very, very astute at doing that, and we've been very successful. Our relationship, my specific relationship with ACOG, the state level, folks in the governor's office, we've been very fortunate. We'll continue to do so in our efforts to pursue grants and be awarded those. Furthermore, it's a one-year contract, sir. If it's not fruitful, we won't continue it.
Is there a cost plus for things like the Amber Alert notification or additional notifications?
The only additional cost would be if we wanted to extend the length of time that we are currently at the 30 days. If we wanted to extend that to 45 days, there's an increased cost for the storage that they would provide for us in the cloud. We have no intention of doing that, so no, sir.
So again, we have an Amber Alert going off somewhere in the San Antonio area. You guys are able to automatically pick up on that as part of this?
That's correct. If these cameras see that license plate that's associated with that Amber Alert, it notifies an app that we will all have, including our dispatch, our telecommunicators, and they will start us towards that camera and help us triangulate that, if you will. And yes, sir.
And that's basically almost real time, or
almost real time. Yes, sir. That particular scenario you're providing is almost real time. Some of the others are, an individual commits a crime, a heinous crime, whatever crime, a theft, a catalytic converter theft, whatever crime you want to throw out there. And 2 weeks later, when the homeowner's back from vacation, they report it to us, and then we're able to begin the investigation and look for it at that point. So there's some real-time benefits to it, and then certainly the post-offense benefits to it. But again, this is just for the approval to go after the grant, and then we can revisit some of this, or I can provide the policy. We might not even have to revisit if everybody can have their input on policy through email or however that is preferred. We find ourselves in a place that we're all comfortable with and amenable to.
We'll have it vetted through legal counsel before we give it to council.
Move to approve? Oh, I'm sorry. You already did that?
It's already done.
Any other comments or discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
I'm going back to.
Motion carries.
Close that out. Our next is a no task neighborhood traffic committee program.
And the council members allowed to speak first.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was proposed to establish a neighborhood traffic committee which would report its findings with recommendations for improving traffic safety to council semi-annually, particularly regarding neighborhood speed, school zone safety, road safety conditions adjacent to city parks and recreational areas, and identify limited site safety issues. I did a review on the internet of cities that have programs like this, and they vary quite a bit in the way they're structured, but all with the intent of improving service with regard to traffic safety in neighborhoods. Approximately half the time, cities from Lubbock to Dallas essentially incorporate within their structure a resident safety committee that would include the city manager, the chief of police, the fire department, public works director as kind of a core, and then have a citizen group associated with it. The other half of the cities out there essentially are principally citizen input directed. I hold up the chief's report for tonight under tab Z. 68% of the accidents reported in this report were within neighborhoods, on neighborhood roads, not on 1604, not on Pet Hooker, not on Kitty Hawk. They're on Athena, they're on Bird, they're on Coronado, East Aviation, Lindbergh, Robin, Trudy Lane, National Boulevard. areas where we have significant problems. And I think we've documented well enough that we need to do something. Now that said, what can be done? We have to further refine identifying what the problem is, and that takes a little time. Essentially, it takes time to get a committee together. I would suggest that we take advantage of homeowners associations and get representation from that group with regard to problems in their specific area. I would suggest that this committee include representatives from other areas that aren't in homeowners association, like Trudy and North and so forth. It should be representative over areas that are of concern. So basically, the consideration before council is that we propose a committee with the approval of the mayor that would do the basic work for reviewing statistics and getting citizen buy-in for improving traffic safety. Now, that may require consideration of the new terms, traffic calming type thing, or even newer technology type thing in some areas. In cities like Lubbock, they require an 80% neighborhood buy-in before any new device, any new sign, any whatever is put up, 80% buy-in. And that would not be an unrealistic thing to make sure the citizens of the community support that. Truly, we have a problem. It's ubiquitous throughout our city. And with the support of this council and given appropriate guidance by the city manager setting up the committee for neighborhood traffic safety, I would like Mr. Mayor very much to move forward with this idea.
Any other discussions or anything?
I just had a question for staff on what are our legal options in terms of the committee? I mean, obviously, we could do an ordinance and create like an official one, but is there also an informal one that you could do for a year's time, or what are our options?
So the program that Mr. Rubal is talking about is called Safe Streets and Roads for All. It's actually a national program. And we've already started down that pathway, so Maribel, if you can pop up my presentation, I'll tell you where we are and where we're going. So this is a program that is overseen by the U.S. Department of Transportation. It is a multi-year program. I guess I have the slide. Yes, I do. So SS4A, that's what it's called for short. It's a multi-one, and it's the framework that we use to identify strategies and implementation plans in order for safe streets for everybody to reduce transportation-related fatalities and injuries. It does accommodate all city streets. It doesn't accommodate Pat Booker Road. It will not accommodate anything that's owned by the federal or the state government. And we will use it for multiple items, and future growth will have to be obviously considered in that as well. And then there is a lot of stakeholder engagement and feedback that has to come through that process. And then at the end, there's an advisory committee that is set up when you have a program like this. There typically have some people from the public. However, the ones that we have talked to obviously have to have your fire department. They're the ones that get the final say on all traffic calming procedures. It's written into their code because of the size and the turning radius and the low centering of the vehicles. Obviously, you're going to have public works because they're usually the ones that do all the signage and the working. PD because they're the ones on the street that have all the statistics. It's also recommended that probably code be part of that, because sometimes the safety issue is just, you know, a tree limb or a shrub blocking a sign or a light that makes it an unsafe thing. Highly recommended that we have an engineer or an architect on there that is familiar, maybe not necessarily with the transportation code, but obviously ADA, because ADA has to be a part of this particular plan. And then it was also recommended that we have people in our city that are physically challenged, particularly with wheelchair and blind, that we have them give some input because the way they experience safety and road safety and sidewalk safety is completely different from the rest of us. So those are the recommendations that came out of that particular study. So here's where we are today. So we are in task 1, which was the ADA compliance. In this year's fiscal budget, we do have $25,000 in there to start our ADA compliance plan. It's the first portion that you have. Moving forward, any federal or state funding that came from the federal, that is a road projects, requires that you have an ADA compliance plan. And so we are currently working on that one. There are 3 phases to that process. It takes approximately 3 to 4 months. Randy and his engineers are working on that. So task 2 is the SSA 4A, and that is a city match that is required. It's a $200,000 study plan. The city's match is $40,000. And as you know, when Toro Martinez was here from Congressman Cuellar's office, he said, "Oh, congratulations, you got a $160,000 grant." That's our grant, and that's what it's for, is for the neighborhood transportation plan. Not everybody calls it a neighborhood transportation plan. It's actually called Transportation and Mobility Master Plan. We call it whatever we want. So we did receive that. The federal government has advised us it will be about 12 months before they give us our $160,000. So when we come back for the budget cycle, you will see that in the Public Works Department under the general fund, you will see a city match of $40,000 for that particular grant so that we can start task number 2. Task number 2 should take about 12 months. Then the next thing that we are already applying for, and you will also see in your fiscal 25 budget, is what's called the supplemental SSA4 grant. And that is a much bigger pool of money. We will be applying for $740,000 from the federal government, and then we'll have to match that $94,000. And so then again, that is through the U.S. Department of Transportation, and that is a 12-month planning process. So once we finish all of those planning, what do you end up with? You end up with a Transportation, Mobility, and Master Plan, or TMMP, and that is the living, breathing document that you have in place. And so it should have identified problem areas, things that need to be fixed in terms of ADA, signage, etc. And then from there, you get your advisory committee. You've already had your stakeholder input. Now you're going to have your regular advisory committee, and they're going to go through and start prioritizing some of those things. And then when we get to the budget cycle every year, we'll be bringing that back to council, and that will be in our CIP program. So the question is, of course, what do we do in the interim, right? This is a long process. So we know we have some areas, and so I won't take up all the time. But one of the things that we do is we do track when we get fix-it forms and complaints where they're coming from. I mean, generally speaking, if you're going to talk about arterial streets, we know which ones have more traffic than others and which ones have more speeders. And as they come in, both police and public works address those. So y'all want to step in and say what you do when you get the complaint about speeding?
Absolutely. So either through fix-it form, email, phone calls, word of mouth, we get notified of them, or citizens to be heard. And Mr. Tidwell, thank you. And we're going to work through that traffic issue. We will receive said complaints, disperse it to either our traffic unit and or patrol cadre. We will do an assessment of those areas. We follow that up with the traffic study with the radar. The speed machine, if you will, that records all the data that we will need. We then review that data and look, rule out anomalies and some of these other things and determine if we have an issue. If we do, we will hotspot treat with traffic enforcement. To date, in probably the last 2 years, we haven't conducted a study that has revealed of our complaints, of the complaints we received. Let me be very clear on that. Of the complaints that we've received, we have not completed a study that has revealed any excessive speeding. To the extent that we looked at TxDOT requirements for decreasing speed limits or increasing speed limits, and we're not anywhere close to what they define as needed to make those changes. That said, we still do enforcement. We follow up with the complainants. That's really the process. Yes, ma'am. We log the complaint, of course.
Can I ask a question? So, like, if it is something like speeding, or let's say a school bus comes right here and stops, and for some reason, no one on this street decides to stop, even though the school bus has their stop sign out, and they continually do this, and children almost get murdered, they just tell you? I mean, is that, I guess that's the question. So I was thinking, like, maybe this neighborhood committee thing would be where someone, like Mr. Cibolo, would come in and, like, they would be able to, but is it better that they just file with the police department? I guess I'm not sure, like, what are you supposed to do? I mean, I
think intuitively that's what you do, and I think that also expedites the process. We could report it elsewhere, but it's gonna come to us, right? We're the only enforcement entity in the state of Texas that can enforce traffic. There is no other entity, so ultimately it comes to us, but excellent question. I would say that we're more than accessible, and we're extremely responsive. So I think that gets a satisfaction to all parties involved and the safety of the children.
But you're saying that's probably our best route. It's just going, it's
Yes, ma'am.
telling those residents, when we hear it constantly, like telling those residents, file with the police department, because sometimes I'm not really sure where to send people.
The fix-it form is probably the best approach. I think Susan would turn
That
to
way
agree
we
with
get
that.
it in writing, we get their address, so we know where the problem is.
It's easier to track if one falls through the cracks, and it happens when you have a spam filter, right? Sometimes it happens. The fix-it form is almost fail-proof. And then it gets, multiple entities will see it, myself or Public Works, and then we'll confer with each other and find out, is this yours? Are you working it? Are we working it? We know whose lane it should be in. No pun intended.
And here's one of the issues that we face when we have a neighborhood street. Now, I'm not talking Sunrise Canyon, UC Boulevard, Phoenix, Pat Booker Road, Coronado Boulevard. Those are arterial streets, right? Those are meant to carry a lot of traffic. On the smaller streets, whether it's, El Dorado or Balboa or whatever streets y'all live on, those typically are carrying just the traffic for the neighborhood. And when we get a lot of complaints about speeding, it's typically one or two people in that neighborhood, and I'm sorry to say it, it's usually teenagers, who are overexerting their enthusiasm for their vehicle and the need for speed. It's helpful to us, and we do tell this to people when they complain, if you could tell us what time they're going, what time they're coming home, you could even tell us the color of the car. It'll help us identify them, and then that way we can just target them and not be, hitting every person in the neighborhood that maybe doesn't need to be bothered by the police department. That's always very helpful, but you know what? Guess what? A lot of people don't want to rat on their neighbors, and so they won't tell us who it is. So we just can investigate to the best of our ability.
So I got one for you. 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, so the weekend.
At your office?
Hey, I'm not there at 4. So I do have another for you. So what you're saying is that people aren't complaining enough. If we're not hitting this, because people are always complaining about speeding, and so I need to quit throwing rocks and sticks at these speeders and start filling out a fix-it form.
With the fix-it form, yeah, that's a good step, but you can always call, email. What you've done in the past has been fine. We've worked it. I think you had the biggest problem when the construction was going on down Kitty Hawk Road.
Y'all were awesome. Thank you for.
Yes, sir. So that type of treatment, right? It ebbs and flows. Everybody has, the occasional way they found a shortcut. They're going to speed through there for a while until we come and tap it back some.
But what I heard you say is that we're not. You said something along the lines of, well, we're not bad enough to have a major issue.
By TxDOT standards.
Is that because I don't complain every day?
No, I think because you do complain almost every day. With all due respect. I'm kidding. No, they require a threshold of X amount of speed and X amount of speeders over the speed limit. In other words, 85% of or 15% of your traffic is more than 85% over the speed limiters. I forget the algorithm.
Okay.
We don't meet those thresholds. Any citizen complaint, we're going to respond to 100%.
Okay, so you have one of the officers hide out in the alley right next to my house.
Yes, sir.
And you'll hit that number.
So we have a full-time traffic union now, we're on it.
And all they have to do is roll their window down, look at some nice tea. So, for you, are we on, so me being Mr. Don't Speed Down My Street, where do I fall? I mean, we want, Mr. Tidwell and I want to be on this committee where we meet with the chief of police and say, fix my street as far as I don't want any more speeders. Is that task number 4 with the, I mean, where does this fall? The speeder issue, because right now all I'm hearing about is 88.
Well, no. Task 4, or excuse me, task 2, which is the big one, the 470, well, I guess it ended up being 525,000. That's the one that's going to take in all the streets. The first one is ADA. The second phase is safety on all the streets.
So that's where Mr. Tidwell and I get our satisfaction.
Yes. Now, but we believe we can give you some satisfaction before then. Parsing my words with you, as you know. We can get you some satisfaction by what the chief has done, and now that we know where Mr. Tidwell is, I'm pretty darn sure that traffic camera is going to show up in his area. So one of the things that Randy and I have been working on is trying to identify the lighted speed so that it tells you when you're speeding. If you're going 35, it's going to light up 35. The interesting thing about that particular traffic signal device, it also has a small box on there that counts the number of cars that go by, and it also counts the number of times that they were going over the speed limit. So with that data, used by the police department, they'll know more where the traffic areas are. So I put Randy on the spot last time. I'm going to do it again this time because I want Goolsby to yell at him and not me. How much they cost, how much do you have in the budget, when is it going to get here, and how are you going to use it? Oh, yeah.
We have 2 of them scheduled in the budget. So we'll be working on, I keep saying that, but we are working on acquiring those. And there's going to be a demand. We've gotten a lot of requests. One of them was for Phoenix. Another one here at the last meeting was for Mount Olympus. Now Sunrise Canyon, right? So there's a need throughout the city. Obviously, that's what the camera trailer, that's why the police department has a camera trailer. Every time I get those complaints, I'll let him know. He'll go out and put the camera trailer out there. And it's kind of a little bit, and he has where it tells him the speed also. The ones that we're looking at is almost permanent, but if I start doing that, it gets very expensive. It's probably to set up a pair on each side of the street. It's about $7,000 to do that. And so I have one pair of 7,000 budgeted. So that's pretty expensive every year if we're doing that. But everybody in each neighborhood I know has a complaint because we see it to fix it for them all the time. So yes, we are working on it.
So the lighted speed signs make sense for UC Boulevard, Phoenix. What street do you live on? Tell them. It makes sense for those streets, Coronado, Meadowland, Old Cimarron Trail, right? Those main big arteries that everybody from the neighborhoods enter out to and go north, south, east, and west. Yeah, your cut through streets. It makes sense to have them on there. But the problem with the lighted signs is they light up. And so they light up day or night. So if you are the resident who happens to have now a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit outside of your house and it gets changed out to an electronic one, you are going to have light pollution. And I can tell you, we had somebody who wanted a lighted stop sign. We put it in. Oh my gosh, the number of complaints about how bright it is at night. You can't adjust the light when the night happens. It's just a light. And so thankfully people do get used to it, but not everybody's going to want them, but we are going to work to try to get in as many as we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
I think I'm assuming like if Mr. Cibolo put in a fix-it form, does he generally get a response, or is it kind of like you guys are going to research it and he may or may not hear what the results were, or is there a...
There is a request response, but I always want to respond even when they say no. Of course, I want to respect but they almost always check yes, and they 100%. They get a response that we received it, and then we're going to be taking such and such action. Then they get a response with follow-up of what that action was.
Okay.
And when we say traffic complaints, short of repeat complainers, Councilman? Short of those,
That's me.
I saved every complaint we received for 2024 this far this year, fiscal year, 12 total traffic complaints. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have traffic issues. I fully recognize that, but we have 12 that have been submitted through basic forms or other mechanisms. So I think if we educate the folks first what that's to be used for, maybe an education campaign with help of y'all, or some other form, method, that we can give that a shot first, because I think it's going to be very effective, more so than let's meet and talk about this traffic problem that we could have already resolved, right? And I'm not saying the committee doesn't, it certainly we need a committee, that's part of this process, but I don't think that necessarily is where a complaint for traffic has to live. It can be a place for it to live, but I think a primary place for it to live would be our fixing forum that's easily accessible and it gets quick results.
I think there's two things that I would just recommend. Is one is if you do a study like if you go out and do Phoenix, if there's a place that we could post it and say what the results of you studied it and here's some of the traffic patterns you saw and why we're recommending certain actions if it's possible.
Absolutely.
The other thing too is that everybody seems to have kind of an idea of what they think the solution is. Speed bumps, extra stop sign, whatever the complaint du jour is. There's a way to say why these are effective or not effective, or why there may be good solutions.
And our engineers help with this a lot too, and the committee and the plan, and you're absolutely right there. And we save all the studies we do, they take 2 weeks to do. We do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, both directions. Any other days, they're anomalies, right? Monday, Friday. Not very many people working on Mondays or Fridays compared to, so you're capturing best sample data, right? Best data for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you turn it around and do it the other way. So it's a 2-week study. These take some time. So sometimes when a complaint comes in, it might be 2 weeks before they see that out there, or 3 weeks, or a month if something else is scheduled. But our personal response, the police car, the extra effort, the radar gun, the traffic unit, those things are real time. And certainly more so real time than they've ever been with the addition of the traffic unit.
Thank you. So I would be in favor of kind of letting the grant play out, and then maybe if we could do some quarterly reporting from the police department, kind of some of the studies that you've done and what you've found. I think that would be a good place to start. It's just my recommendation.
We can do that.
Thank you.
I think actually you'll find a lot of that comes out. Maybe y'all can just add that to your monthly report.
Yes, ma'am. We can, sure. All of the data is probably too much data, right? It's just too much to consume. But we can identify numbers of total speeders that were over a speed limit and by what percent. We can kind of find some stuff. And maybe that's an opportunity for the community to say, hey, this would be important. Let's post these 3 things instead, right? Because there's so much data we get from that. That we can flesh that out some, though, and only provide enough that folks will actually digest it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I know that we have a communications director that's starting on Monday, I believe. And I do think that would be a great first initial campaign plan for her, would be to kind of talk about the traffic issues. I mean, that is a pervasive problem in the community. There's a lot of pain points revolving around that. So maybe educational about the process of how to complain and what steps the police department takes and all of those things. What kind of things that they can be looking for.
Yeah, I think it's best served if the police department puts it in their language, and then we can help massage it for
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Mr. Rubal. Well, first of all, I compliment the police department on the rapidity of response to an event. However, with regard to prevention of events, I think there is an issue. And in that plan, the key that's missing is citizen input. So essentially the citizen is there 24/7 on Phoenix or Balboa or wherever type thing. And they're monitoring, they're your eyes, okay? And the fix-it form, you said you had 12 complaints. Walking around the city, on every street, I hear complaints about traffic. And again, I just pull up your own document saying you've got evidence of things that should be corrected, should have been corrected, sir.
Well, I'm not tracking, sir. I apologize. What evidence of what? That should be corrected?
Well, this is your accident report for
Yes,
this month, of which 68% are not the accidents are not on Pet Booker, are not on whatever.
And I would submit to this group that they're probably extremely minor, somebody backed into a mailbox, right? Or they're not head-on collisions that are causing numerous injuries on
Not
those.
necessarily speed related.
And it might not even be speed related. So we need to do a deeper dive into what type of actions before we can say, how do we correct that? Because it might be operator error. And I would suggest that, submit that most of those are.
Okay, so basically, let's make the honest statement that you don't have the data on neighborhood speed and safety-related issues that include limited sight, areas around the parks, you don't have the data.
We have some data, but you're right, there are some that's missing.
Yeah, we got thousands of dollars and years in time where nothing is going to happen. Is that about right?
I'm not sure I can speak to the plan, the building master
The plan presented here is a multi-year plan, okay? Is a multi-year plan that's not directed toward what the citizens find as concern. Now you say there's no report to fix it or whatever. Now there are two forums on our city website. One is fix it and the other is ask it or check it or whatever type thing, the chatbot type thing. And I haven't found it very effective. I don't know many people that even use it. Essentially, I think Mr. Vaughan's point is extremely well taken. That is, if you have a traffic report, let the people know in the neighborhood and so forth what it is. I can, sir, with all due respect, I can tell you the citizens have valid complaints.
I'm not disagreeing, Councilman. I'm not sure where that was taken. I apologize if that was what I presented to you. I don't disagree the value of a committee. I'm simply stating that I think the Fix It Forum through an education platform will help the citizens have a mechanism for reporting said complaints. I believe you said that you walked around and on every street, every citizen has a complaint, but if nobody knows the outlet for getting that out, then sure, frustration builds, right? That breeds frustration. But to your point on the data that you have, the 68%, and I think Captain Vieira would probably agree, those are going to be non-injury accidents and operator error, backed into something, hit a curb, blew a tire out. They're not going to be injury-related accidents that we can even really enforce. Those are going to be things where the driver just wasn't paying attention that day. The majority of our actions that occupy the lion's share of our time and cause injuries and are speed-related are Pat Booker and all the arteries that we just discussed. But I'm happy to look deeper into it, absolutely. So I'm not trying to be difficult or present that we don't think this plan or the committee is favorable or amenable to us. We absolutely are.
We live in our neighborhoods, and that's what we want the safest to be.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments? No actions are required, is this, I understand?
That is correct, sir. We'll be bringing things back to you here in the near future to get those aspects of the.
A lot will depend upon, a lot of these proposals may very well be in the future budget.
Yes, sir, they are upcoming budget.
With that being said, there's no other items on there, so we move for adjournment. Thank you very much. Good.